Today we have with us Elaine Bowes. She's from the Pentecostal Credit Union. Now, this is an organization that's been going for over 40 years. It was actually founded by her dad, Carmel Jones. So I'm going to ask Elaine a few questions about the PCU as it stands now, and then about the history of the PCU. So PCU stands for Pentecostal Credit Union. What do you guys do?
Right. So there are, I don't know if you know, there are about 300 or 400 credit unions across the country. And something that all credit unions do, and probably the only thing that's the same about all of us, is that we offer to distinct sections of a community, because our membership is formed by what they call a common bond. So you have to establish what that community is. And to that community, we offer low-cost loans and deposit-taking facilities. And some various other things. Some credit unions offer other services too, but basically financial services in the cases in the form of loans and deposit taking facilities to members of our community. And for us, so every credit union has a different common bond. Most people will know of credit unions defined by work and home location. So there are things like Glasgow Credit Union and Leeds Credit Union. So they're called live and work credit unions. So if you live and or work in those areas, you can join that credit union. If you don't, you can't. I can't join Glasgow Credit Union. I don't live or work there. And there are credit unions defined by the sector you work in. So there's an NHS credit union. There is a police credit union called Protect and Serve. There's a Plain Saver credit union that's set up for people who work. They work at Heathrow Airport, I think. I think it's Heathrow and Gatwick. They don't. I think they are pilots, and, the hosts and hostesses on the planes and various other things. So they're that. And then there are credit unions like ours. And we are a faith-based credit union, and there are a few other faith-based credit unions. You need to really have an association, be an attender of a Pentecostal church in the whole of the UK. We cover all of the UK. Now, an attender doesn't mean that you have to go every Sunday, or that you have to be a member, have the right hand of fellowship, because we know that most people attend church aren't members of the church. But you need to be able to show some kind of association. So it may be that you go every Christmas, or that you go to every convention, or do you know what I mean?
And you go to funerals and christenings.
Yeah. And it's likely that you will have, although this is not part of the definition, but it's likely that you'll have family members who are in the church, and you probably go because there are family occasions. So that's us really. So it is community banking, in that we're concerned about the community, and what we do is we are profit making bodies. We do make profits. We're not charitable in that sense, but the profits go back to the community. So we don't have any fat cat investors or shareholders. Every member is a shareholder. And every year, the profits that we make, other than what we need to run the business and grow the business, when that's taken out, the rest of the profits go back to the membership in the form of a dividend.
Okay, so that's paid into the account.
It's paid into the account. It's tax-free.
Okay.
It's different every year because the members decide every year at the AGM what the dividend will be. They'll be advised, obviously, by the board about what we can afford or what we can pay. And we always pay a dividend. Some credit unions don't, but we always have, and we've always been pretty competitive in relation to that percentage of their savings that they will get. They'll get a dividend on. So that's us, and I think that's the only thing that's the same about credit unions. We are all so different.
Yeah.
So different. Everyone's different.
I saw in your last report that you said in 2023 You had assets of 13.6 million.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So can I ask, do you guys trade on the money that are your assets? Do you get traders to grow that money?
Yes, we do. Yeah. We do
Okay.
have a treasury portfolio. So we do invest, and so the chief exec is, manages those investments. But yes, we do. Credit unions generally are restricted by, we're regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority and the Prudential, regulated and authorized by the Financial Conduct Authority and the Prudential Regulation Authority. And as part of that regulation, there are things that we can't do. There are things that we are restricted in doing. And so we are restricted to the markets that we can trade on. But we're not restricted from trading at all, and we do.
Okay, great. And do you find that the members, the majority of them are organizations and businesses, or are they more individuals?
I think the majority of our members will be individuals, but we have a lot. I mean, we do have both corporate and so business and personal accounts. And what's interesting though about businesses and individuals is a lot of our individuals are business owners. So even if they don't have business accounts as such, they may use their personal accounts for their business. So because I asked Shane this question the other day, I said to Shane, how many sort of business corporate business owners do we have? And he said, it's so difficult to say. We can tell you how many corporate accounts we have, but that wouldn't be really telling you how many business owners we have, because so many of our members are business owners. And it's really interesting that the level of entrepreneurship in the church, as in our communities, in the Black, because most 98% of our members are Black African and Black Caribbean, and as compared to entrepreneurship in the community as a whole, we certainly at PCU have a higher level of entrepreneurs in the credit union than in the community as a whole, because we did some research. We researched our members last year, and there's been other research that shows that the level of entrepreneurship in the church is extremely high. There are so many people in the church who may have regular jobs, but also have a side hustle. So doing, doing hair, or having catering businesses, or frequently now even more digital online businesses, videographers, as well as other kinds of businesses, and sometimes more than one. So, the spirit of entrepreneurship is incredibly high in the church. We just wish that all the churches would recognize how important it is in the church. Some churches do, but if the churches could really see the wealth they have sitting in their pews.
I know.
Business owners, they would.
I know. It's like a sleeping giant, Seriously, if the amount of talent that there is within the Black community all pooled together, we could be a huge powerhouse within the Black community, but within Britain itself, we could move icebergs, mountains.
Yeah.
We could melt icebergs. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
But one of the amazing things I would say about our corporate accounts and our business accounts and our personal accounts, and we actually we actually won an award quite recently. We've got the Fair Life Mark, and one of the things that they actually commented on was the fact that our business accounts and our personal accounts, the terms and conditions are not different. If you go to a bank and you open a business account, it's very different from your personal account. That's not the case with us. Our corporate account holders enjoy the same privileges as members as our individual account holders. And I think if you're thinking about growing the economics of a community, we believe, like lots of people do, that business ownership is absolutely key to our economic viability as a community, and that's why we're so much behind business ownership. But if you're really thinking about really growing a community, then that's the kind of thing that you need to do. You need community banking that way. You need to have bank accounts of businesses that are not charging them crippling rates, you know, for having the account, for, you know, repaying the loan early, or just, you know, interest rates that are higher, you know, all of those things that you get in business accounts. You don't get that with credit unions, which is why credit unions are ideal, I think, for businesses in the community.
Okay. Now, you mentioned before a name, Shane. So please introduce Shane to the audience. Who is Shane?
Right. Shane is the Chief Executive Officer. He's the boss, really. Well, the board of the bosses, but, you know, he is operationally and strategically the lead at the credit union. And so he's responsible for our strategic direction. He is also a board member as the chief executive. He's also on the board as the treasurer. So he is part of the strategic decision making of the board as well. So, and he's the banker. Essentially, I might have said that he really is a banker. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
and
he really
we've also got to say he's also your son.
He's also my son. Yes, he is.
You have other children as well, don't you?
I've got one other son. I've got two boys.
Two boys, okay.
Yeah, my youngest son is an entrepreneur himself as well, to be honest. It's just interesting. He's a football agent. And he runs a football agency and stuff, and he has his own business, and he's been doing that for 10 years. So yeah, I've got two boys.
Fantastic. Okay, and to show that this has come from an extraordinary family line, your father was the founder of the Pentecostal Credit Union, Carmel Jones.
He was, yes, he was. He was.
Okay, so can we go back? Can you tell us a story of how your father founded this business?
Yeah, I'm going to. It's an incredible story. Actually, it's an incredible story. So my father came here from Jamaica in 1955. He was 17 years old when he came, and he came like, and at that time, Windrush, at the height of Windrush, I suppose, Windrush Generation. And 17-year-old boy, he came here to work. He came here to join his brother and his cousins. His father paid his passage, and he settled in South London, in Clapham. And there was a church at the end of his road, St. Paul's, which was part of the Trinity churches in Clapham. You know, there was this really big church. I think it's Holy Trinity. I can't remember the church. Anyway, St. Paul's is a sister church to the big church in the middle of Clapham. And interestingly, that church was built in the 1700s. And during the late 1700s and early 1800s, of course, the abolitionist movement, the Macaulays and all of those, they used to go to that church. They were part of the kind of anti-slavery movement. Anyway, my father in Jamaica was an Anglican, as many, you know, there's a lot of people here from the Caribbean who are Pentecostal, but he wasn't a Pentecostal when he was at home. He was an Anglican. And this is an Anglican church. And one Sunday he went along to the church, and he went for 3 Sundays altogether, actually, because he was used to going. And on the 3rd Sunday that he went, the vicar took him aside. He thanked him for coming, but asked him not to return because some of the congregation were very uncomfortable with him. Yeah, coming. Actually, you know, Dawn, it's interesting. That was not uncommon. You know, quite a few Black people had that experience when they came here. Quite a few of them that went to Anglican churches, because they used to go to Anglican churches when they were home. They came here and they did. And not only Anglican churches, Methodist churches and other churches and Baptist churches. That's the reception that they received. But, you know, because of that reception, you know, that created the growth of the Black Pentecostal church movement in this country. So it was because of that, because what was happening is at the same time they were being sent away, Pentecostal churches, those Windrush migrants, were having their services in their living rooms on a Sunday evening. So when that happened to my dad, and he went back and he told the people that he was, you know, sharing the accommodation with, they said, don't worry about that. Come along, we go to this we're going to this this service. They meet every Sunday evening in the pastor's house, and he went along. He went along to one of those, and the growth of those churches, because those churches grew to become the Pentecostal churches that we know now and that we have now. He was part of the Calvary Church of God in Christ, which is Kojic, and they moved from the living room to a Sussex Road, a church hall that they rented. They rented church halls, and they went to Sussex Road and rented that church hall. And they moved from that church hall to buy the church that is now at Fenton Road, Vauxhall, Calvary Church of God in Vauxhall. They bought that building. Now, what happened was, and my dad was part of all of this era, so this was late 60s, early 70s, when they grew so much, they had enough money and their congregations had grown, and they wanted to borrow money from the banks to buy the church buildings. Now, at the same time that our congregations were growing, the Anglican congregations were depleting. They were dwindling. And the Anglican churches, and there were others too, there would have been Baptist churches and Methodist churches, were selling their buildings because they couldn't fill them. So it was like a match made in heaven. They were selling them, we were wanting to buy them. But of course, when we went to the banks to get the money to borrow, banks said no, they wouldn't lend to them, which was where my father then, because he was part of all of the finance, committees and things in the churches, then my father had a vision. He will tell you about a vision that he had to found this credit union. It was a vehicle for the churches. It was always for him a vehicle for the churches to be able to get money to buy their buildings. That was always the vision for him. And so the credit union was a great vehicle. So the story we tell about him is that we say that he came here when he was 17 years old. He was told by the Anglican Church not to come back, but 30 years later he went back and bought all their churches.
Oh.
Because he did,
Wow.
he did. He went back and he bought their churches. They did run him, but and it's really interesting because 3 years ago, St. Paul's wanted to apologise. In fact, the Archbishop of Canterbury apologised to my father. He wrote to him a letter because they heard his story, and they apologised because they recognised the racism that happened all those years ago and the way it impacted Windrush migrants. And so they wrote to my dad. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, wrote to him. But the St. Paul's, the Vicar of St. Paul's, actually, they had a service. And it was during the middle of COVID, actually, but they had a service to apologise to him.
Wow.
But yeah, they did. It was a lovely service. It's on our YouTube channel, actually. You can go on the YouTube channel and you can
put a link to it.
Yeah, I'll definitely give you the link so you can see the service. It was very, very moving. It was very, very, very moving. But you know what he said in the service, because he couldn't go because he'd had a stroke by then and he wasn't well.
But, oh really? He couldn't go. Yeah, no.
He couldn't go. It was COVID. It was the middle of COVID, so he couldn't really go, and he wasn't that well. But he sent them a letter. He watched it, obviously, because it was recorded. And he said in the letter, he never felt any, there was never any kind of bad feeling or bitterness about it, because for 3 reasons. If that never happened, he wouldn't have found the credit union. That was his inspiration. All of those. That wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't have met my mum, because when they run him, the place where they went to join, her uncle, she came in 1956, and her uncle, who was running that home church building, she joined when she came, and so he wouldn't have met her. So so I wouldn't have been here. We wouldn't have been here if all of those things didn't happen. So he always says he doesn't regret any of it. They can say sorry and he will hear it, but they don't have to worry. He never ever was bitter or angry about it, because all of those things led to the amazing things that happened in his life. And it was the inspiration for PCU. That experience of discrimination and exclusion was, kind of fired up lots of things that he did, actually, not just the credit union, but because my dad was a real activist. My dad was a trade unionist, years and years ago, staunch Labour supporter. Back in the day when there was, Malcolm X and the Soledad brothers, I remember all of that. I remember mum and my dad having afros and being really, really into black empowerment. That's how we were raised.
Wow.
We were raised like that, so that he was always, that was always the trajectory my father was always on, and my mum. So,
okay,
forming the credit union, because he did it with her. He gets, he's the founder, but he would always say, if it wasn't for my mum,
yeah,
it wouldn't be here. He'd always say that, can give him all the, he always used to say that, and give him all the glory, but if it wasn't her, there wouldn't be no Pentecostal Credit Union. So they built it together, really.
yeah. So she was like the co-founder then.
She is, absolutely.
Okay.
She is.
She's still with us?
Yes, she is, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, she must have some stories to tell, huh?
Yeah.
Is she writing her own book?
No, she won't. When we try and get her to do things like that, she won't.
Oh, really?
She just, no, she won't. But he talks about her in his book, because he wrote a book, of course, and she is the center, of all this stuff. You read it. I mean, he just, their story. I mean, you must go to the YouTube channel, because we filmed him. We filmed all of these. We tried to capture as much as we could of him,
fantastic.
while he was here. And so we've got lots of films, and he talks about when he met her, and he talks about when he formed the credit union, and all of these things.
Well done.
So we've got lots of footage of him, actually.
And you've also got a PDF of the book you wrote with pictures on your website as well.
Yeah.
PCUUK.
.com.
Yeah. So we'll put that link as well at the bottom of the video. So how did he actually form the credit union? Was he sort of researching how that was done? Tell us about that.
Yes.
process.
Yeah, he did. So he had this vision, and apparently he said that there was an advert at the time. We're one of the oldest credit unions in the country.
Oh, really?
And yes, we are. We were formed in 1980, and at the time there were only 5.
Oh,
other credit unions. Yeah, so we are one of the oldest.
How many are there now?
About 300, about 300-400.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we were kind of I think we're actually number 6. There were 5 others. We're number 6.
Yeah.
Number 6. And some of those have gone now. But what people don't know, Dawn, and I have to tell you, what we every October, every Black History Month, I go on this campaign, in social media about Windrush Black communities and the credit union movement. The first credit union ever in this country was in 1964, the Hornsey Cooperative, and it was a credit union of Caribbean migrants. That's the first ever. Yeah, you don't know, innit? Yeah, see, there's so much you don't know. We know, I've got the story. We know who they were and everything. It's now London Capital Credit Union, because it merged, I think, in 2013. So it doesn't exist anymore. It's now, but it's the foundation of London Capital Credit Union. Okay. Our current Association of British Credit Unions, which is a trade body, was originally the Credit Union League of Great Britain, and it was formed by Caribbean credit unions.
Oh, wow.
People just don't know, because nobody says, And so credit unions, of course, the whole concept of credit unions comes from the African concept of isusu. I don't need to tell you that, but actually the whole thing about people helping people and money circulating in communities, partner, susu, all of those things. The concept of credit unions come from that.
Wow.
It's an African tradition.
Oh.
Right. And they don't tell you that either. But we've written the story. We have a publication called About the PCU. We're just rewriting it. We're rewriting it now, where, that the whole tradition of credit unions and the African tradition of isusu is actually credit union. And credit unions in this country, nobody knows what credit unions are in the UK. If you say to somebody credit union, they'll say credit report. They'll say, you know, credit worthy. They'll say all these things. I don't know what credit unions are. If you were in Northern Ireland, or if you're in America, or if you're in the Caribbean, everybody knows what the credit union is. And in the world, the highest density of credit unions is in the Caribbean, first of all, and then in Ireland, and then in America.
Oh, wow.
So the concept of credit unions is really very, very, very much, you know, in fact, there've been academics have written about how Isuzu kind of traveled over with transatlantic slavery into the Caribbean islands, and that's where you get Partner and Susu and Box Hand, and
Wow.
where you are, whether you're in Trinidad or Jamaica or wherever you are in the Caribbean, that's you will understand, you'll know those terms when they talk about it, and also in Africa, of course, you know. So we try to every Black History Month, you'll see if you follow our Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, you'll see this campaign where we tell the story. And Credit Union Day is in Black History Month as well. So we really go for it on Credit Union Day. So people know that actually this is where your credit unions come from.
Okay. All right. And did your father find it easy to set up, or was it difficult? Did he face barriers?
No, apparently it was quite easy. You know, it was not difficult at all. They were looking at the time, I think it was 1980. Was it Ken Livingstone? It was the GLC, I think, back in the day. And they wanted credit unions. There was kind of a drive for credit unions to form. So he got a lot of support to set up the credit union, actually. There wasn't at the time. There wasn't any barriers to, or not many barriers.
Okay.
Certainly never reported on barriers.
Okay. Okay.
Because they wanted them. You know, it was you know, I think it was Ken Livingstone. I think it was.
Yeah. So he was the mayor of London at the time.
Yeah. Definitely wanting credit unions to come together. So
did he go on a marketing drive to try and persuade people to put their money in the credit union?
Yep, he did. He visited all the churches, that old time stuff. My dad wouldn't call it marketing today, but that's what he was doing. He spoke to all the ministers and things that he knew. He knew a lot of people, and he went to all the churches. And yeah, that's how it grew. That's how it grew in the early days.
So you, as one of his children at the time, were you aware of what he was doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were kind of, you know, my dad was involved in lots of stuff. So he was a real community man. He did loads of things in communities, and this was one of the things he was doing. And for us, it was one of the things he was doing. But yeah, because we were the first members. So accounts number 1 to 5 was us. Him, my mum, me, my sister, and my brother. At the first accounts. But then, you know, there were the founding members, which were also the ministers and the people who did support him. Not everyone did support him in the churches, I have to say. It's not as if there was any if there was any barriers that he had, it actually came from the community, our communities themselves, you know. He didn't face them, I think, from externally, but there were people who and you know, at his funeral, you will remember Bishop Francis talked about it. He said not all the churches were behind it. Some of the churches positively tried to sabotage what he was doing.
What?
Yeah. Some of the churches actually were against it. You know, this should not be in churches. We should not have money and things. People talk about money in churches. We don't, people don't trust us. Black people didn't trust Black people. So there are people who didn't, you know, who had this thing about not trusting, not putting. I mean, I've spoken to people about the credit union, and they've said, yes, that's very good, but they're not putting their money in there anyway, because they don't trust us. Less of it now, I'm happy to say. And this, you know, we're going back to the 1980s, aren't we? Really, when there were these kinds of attitudes, but there were plenty of people who did as well, which is how the credit union grew. and plenty of people who benefited from the support that they got when they were, there was a lot of loan sharks around at the time. There still are, but back in the day, there was some incredibly bad practice around money lending. And the credit union was able, for people who did get themselves into those issues, the credit union was able to, pay off their loans and get the borrowing from more ethical borrowing from PCU. So so it was, it was churches themselves, and for him it was always about buying churches. It was always a ministry, and the credit union still is a ministry. We still see it as a ministry.
Oh wow.
Yeah, finance ministry we are, really. It helped so many individuals as well as churches. We've provided the finance for, I think it's 28 churches.
Wow.
We have bought, we provided the mortgages to.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Churches up and down the country.
Okay, and these are being paid off, or have been paid off?
They have been paid off. They have been paid off. Well, I think not. They haven't all been paid off. I think some are still being paid off, but a lot.
Any defaults?
Do you know, we only had one default, but of the churches. But in relation to the churches, no, we as a credit union have the lowest rate of defaults of all credit unions.
Wow.
We have very, very, very little defaults. People be paid.
Okay.
They pay them back. They just do.
Fantastic.
This doesn't mean there's none. And of course we have an approach, because people get into trouble. Everybody does. Sometimes things can happen, and you might find yourself having difficulty repaying your loan. Well, we have an approach in terms of how we will support people who find themselves not able to do that, and we do. But overall, there is extremely real goodwill, loyalty, and we have very, very rarely do we need to go down any enforcement route for people that don't pay their loans. It's very rare.
So, to all intents and purposes, you can be defined as a Black-owned bank in the UK.
We are. We're the closest thing.
Most people don't know that. So this is where you come in, because you're the marketing person.
Thank you, Tom. It's like, what rubbish job you're doing marketing, Elaine?
No, that's not what I said. Oh dear.
Yes, and this is an issue, and it's not for want of trying, I will tell you, in terms of letting the world know that we're here and we're out there, and we're addressing that in a major way soon. But we have social media accounts. We do advertise. We have been on radio. We've even been on TBN. We've
wow.
What have we done? We're on the road. We go to festival. I'm going to Greenbelt at the end of the month on the 24th.
Oh my goodness, is that festival still going? Wow.
It's still going, yeah.
I remember that, the gospel rock festival in the field somewhere.
That is Kettering, actually.
Okay.
Kettering. So I'm going to Greenbelt in
the Christian equivalent of Glastonbury, isn't it?
So I think so. Yes, that's what it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I used to go when I was young. I think I've been twice.
I've never been. So this is my first
really?
time. No, I've never been.
I didn't know it's still going. Amazing.
Yeah, they've invited us to come along and for the Just Money movement about money and credit unions and financial exclusion and things like that. So I'm going to be down there. So we do things like that.
That's good.
Opportunities to sit on platforms and to talk about the work that we do. We're at the Black British Business Show every year. This is going to be our fourth or fifth year this year. So we're there, and we go to churches. We run workshops because we are accredited to provide financial capability training. So we've been trained to do it, and we have certificates that enable us to say, yes, we are competent to provide financial capability training. So we do that. We run workshops online, and they're not just for our members. We make sure that all the workshops and things that we run, we aim it at our members, but they're not just, anyone can join them. They're free, and anyone can come along, and we do advertise them. The last one we did was about a month or so ago, that we did on generational legacy, legacy planning and generational wealth.
Okay.
And we had two experts who, David Frederick, who is an accountant and the vice president. No, he's the president. He was the president of the accounting professionals. He and Jaron White, who is a wealth management, Belvedere Wealth Management Group. They're a black one wealth management group, and they did sessions on legacy planning and wealth management. We're going to run that again. That was so popular. So we're going to do that. And it's really important to us that we make partnerships and we do things with people who really are expert in the field, because these things are really quite complex. Some of these things are very complex. They've got, it's all about tax and all sorts of things. And so you really need to be advised by people who really do know.
Well, yeah, and especially around the legacy, because a lot of people aren't aware of the problems that can be caused if they don't leave a will, if they don't leave some of their properties in trust, and advice and investments is so important, isn't it?
Really, really important, really important. I mean, I learned so much on that evening myself, and and I wouldn't say that I'm ignorant entirely of this, but goodness, the issues, the problems that arise in families when someone dies and hasn't taken care of what they needed to take care of. And what happens, and it breaks families apart. We've actually seen it at the credit union anyway. It breaks families
really
apart. Yeah, it does.
Oh my goodness.
It does. It's we really need to take care of things, really.
So what's your current offers to savers and borrowers? So for instance, with regards to savers, you said that you give out dividends. So does that mean they don't get, say, a 2% profit interest on their savings?
So every shareholder, and to be a shareholder, you have to have some savings, because that's what opening an account means. Opening account means you have to have at least £25 in your account. And once you've got £25 in your account, you will get a share of the dividend that is handed out every year. So regardless, that whatever your shareholding is, you'll get a share of that. And so, of course, the more money you have, the bigger will be your cash payout. So that happens. The advantage of being a credit union member, and every credit union has different interest rates. Actually, we are a credit union that of one of the lowest level of interest rates in terms of what we do. So our interest rates range from 5% to 36%, and 5% is for you get that on loans of, say, over £100,000 that are secured, because we do secured lending, of course, for loans, and I think we lend up to 170,000 on each account. So if you had a loan, say, for instance, of 130,000, you would get that loan fixed at 5%. There are no penalties, and this is what is really important with credit unions. There are absolutely no penalties. We don't charge you if you pay late. We don't charge you if you want to pay off your loan early. We don't charge you to run your account. There are no fees and charges on the accounts at all. So that's because you can get that. So you can get that interest rate from a bank, but actually you'll find that there are lots of other fees and charges tied up with holding your account at a bank. That you don't have that with a credit union. So that is a benefit to everybody. Why should you have a credit union account? For that reason. So clearly, secured lending is the least riskiest lending, because we hold a charge on your property. normally. And unsecured lending, which most of our lending is, you will, depending on the risk, the level of risk associated with the borrowing. So the riskiest lending would attract the highest interest rate, which is 36%.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that would include people with bad credit, say.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
If indeed, yeah. If indeed, it depends on how bad the credit is. I mean, it's just really interesting what credit unions do. I mean, the thing is, if you do have bad credit, or you have poor credit, or not the best credit, you are more likely to get a loan from a credit union than anyone else, because we have our own experience. The credit reference agency that we use is Experience, but there's a tool for credit unions. So the threshold is lower than for other banks. I mean, every single institution, has different thresholds anyway. You will know that there are some lenders where it's really difficult to get a loan. You need to actually have to have a very high credit score or credit rating, and there's others where it's lower.
Okay.
But with credit unions, it's generally lower, but not with the added extra, 150% or whatever, some very high interest rates that some of those subprime lenders might give. So that's true. But I think the other thing about us, certainly, and I'm sure there are other credit unions that do this, and this is really important, I think, our default position in relation to decisions on lending is not no. The default position of most banks and lenders is no. So if you apply for a loan from HSBC and you are declined, HSBC will not come back to you and say, this is the reason why. If you ask them why they're declined, they will tell you to go and check your credit report. They're not going to enter in a conversation with you about why they specifically declined your loan. It's just no. It's just no. You just can't have it. And that's it. That's not the case with us. And there'll be other credit unions with us will also have this approach. Our default position is not no. We're here to help and to assist communities. And so we understand that there may be issues that some people may have. So when we do the credit check, there are three answers that will come back from the credit check. There will be decline is one, refer is another, and accept is the final. So obviously if it's accept, fine. Decline or refer is where your banks will just decline. Even if it's a refer, they'll decline. But with us, with a refer or decline, we will look at the account. And that's where we move away from, computer says, which is the Experian report that comes. And we then look at our own records of your relationship with the credit union. So what they will look at is they will look at the account, which is why I always say to people, and people do this because people realize how important this is. There are people who will only borrow from us because they might have poor lending elsewhere, but we never have a problem with us, with them, with us, because they always pay us back, because they will know that actually we will make borrowing available to them. It doesn't mean every risky person will get it. That's not what this is about. But they make an assessment. There's a personal assessment then made of the risk and whether or not they think it really is a risk. So they'll look at the account and they will see how long the account has been opened, whether or not, say, you're a regular saver. So suppose you save regularly £25 a month and you've been saving £25 a month for the last year or six months. And you want to borrow £5,000 and you've elected to repay that loan at £20 a month. They may say, actually, we don't think that's such a big risk because this is what this person has been doing. So we think that actually this person's good for the loan. And they obviously have to do affordability checks. They will always do that. So if affordability is an issue, you will not get a loan if they don't think you can repay it. But if you pass the affordability checks and it's only an issue of what the computer has said, then they will override the decision. They can override the decision. I mean, I've seen them do things like maybe somebody wanted 5,000 and they consider, well, actually, it's a bit risky. We won't lend you 5,000 now, but we'll lend you 2,500. See how you do. over the next few months and then come back if it goes, or come back for the rest. So they do all sorts of things to facilitate the lending. And I think most, I don't know all credit unions, but I think most credit unions will probably have that kind of approach, because that's not why we're here. We're here to work in community and with community. So we, you know, as I said, the default position is not no. The default position is yes, unless it really is a risk. It doesn't mean everyone's going to get one if it really is a risk.
So it sounds like it's a good idea, even if you have an account elsewhere, to start regularly putting money with the PCU. I mean, there's two ways people can look at it. They can transfer all their banking and all their salary goes into the PCU account, or they can look at it as a savings account and be putting in a certain amount per month.
Yes.
Then that builds up a record with you. People, you get to know them.
Yeah.
Perhaps their saving habits. And is there a multiplier? Let's say that the person has raised, they've got £2,000 in your account. Is there a multiplier that will say, okay, that means you can borrow double or treble the money?
No, there used to be. I know they used to do that, but there's not really a multiplier now. There might be. I think when they're first looking at it, they might say, oh, you've got so much money in your account, so that's fine. But no, it doesn't really work like that now. It's really about affordability. So if you've got £2,000 in the account and you want to borrow £10,000, if you can repay £10,000, you'll get it.
Okay.
If you can do it, and if your credit can stand it, you'll get it. Or £20,000 or £30,000. You know, it just depends again on the level of risk. When we start to get into the realms of secured lending, once you start wanting to borrow over £50,000, sometimes less, depending on the account, depending on the circumstances, then you're in the realms of secured lending. And they may well say, well, actually, if we're going to lend you this much money, we do want some security for it. What can you offer as security?
Okay. So in terms of looking at the economics of the community, then, for people who are looking at either starting a business or growing a business, it'd be a good idea to include the PCU in terms of their future financial requirements.
I would say so. Yeah, I would say you could do a lot worse.
So that may involve opening up a business account, or even if it was a personal account, just show that there's money going in all the while, so that people have evidence that this business is likely to make money. Or do you have a situation where if someone wants to have this used to happen, where you can have an appointment with a bank manager and discuss your plans? Does that work with the PCU, or you don't do that?
Yeah, you don't actually need an appointment. I don't know that Shane, actually, I think very rarely does he have appointments with people to discuss the plans. I think it's a lot of paperwork. He will want to see your accounts. He will want to see, you know, things that say that the business is is viable, and it's all about affordability. And there'll be different checks for businesses as opposed to individuals, but the same concerns will be there. You know, is this viable? Can you afford it? Can you repay it? Is there anything in the accounts that might worry him? You know, and the other things that he looks at, you know, other sorts of things that he might look at for that. I mean, he would do that. I don't really know the details, but I do know, very rarely are there. I mean, people sometimes like to come in and talk about our plans of this, can you help? And so in that case, yes, he does. And he will say, well, if you're thinking about doing something like that, this is what we might be able to do to help. People do that, you know?
Okay.
But if you're simply going for a loan for something, it's done by paper, really.
Okay.
Online, because, you know, we're online now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Online, we're really an online bank. Okay.
And speaking of banks, something special is happening later in the year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it a secret?
Well, it's not a secret if you are a member or or we've invited you along somewhere. But no, it's not a secret. No, it's not a secret as such. Why would I say that? But we are being very careful about how we promote it, really, to make sure we get the most of it. But yes, what I will say is a very important transition is underway. Very important, probably the biggest thing that we've done since we started, really, as a credit union, and something that I know that my father, in fact, we talked to him about, because it's been in planning for the last 2 years, 2.5 years, and I remember Shane talking to him about it, and he was thrilled. It's just a shame he never lived to see it, but he would have been thrilled, and he was certainly in favor of it. That's where his vision has taken us, because as I said earlier to you, Dawn, if it wasn't for the fact that he was a visionary, and because of the way he ran the business, although the regulators might not have liked it, but it's because of that why we are one of the richest credit unions in the country, why we can do this, because of the money that he generated with his foresight and ingenious ideas and vision to make money, to grow that business financially, where we can now say we have a capital to assets ratio of 23%, which is the second highest of any credit union in the country. And we're not a big credit union in numbers. In fact, we're quite small. We've got 2,700 members, and there are credit unions with 30,000 members or more, but they just don't have the cash, the liquidity that we do. So I suppose the way to, because I always ask Shane, what does this mean? What do these terms mean? What does the capital to assets ratio mean? So what does 23% mean? So he says, and 23% is actually the percentage from the total assets that belongs to the business when everything else is paid out. So if everything else should be paid out, we would the organisation would retain 23% of the total assets. Now, for us, that's 13.8 million. That's what our total assets are. And in terms of solvency, every one of your pounds in the credit union is worth £1.28. So if we paid everybody today every penny they had in savings, we would have 28 pence in every pound left over for us. And I think another interesting way of seeing it is, on average, the average shareholding of a credit union member across the country generally is £500, but the average shareholding of a PCU member is £5,000. So that kind of tells you a bit about, we're small, but we're huge. In finances. And so people might think, well, you're a rich organization, you can be doing this, that, the other. But no, the money's for you. The money is not ours. The money is for the members.
Yes.
And Shane is hot on this. We have to pay a dividend. The money has to come back. That's what it's for. So it's really not about us, spending the money on doing. We're very careful with spend. We're very economic with spend, because the money has to come back to the membership. It's a community organisation. The money circulates in the community. We are part of, the whole thing about that's how communities grow, by circulating the money. And it's our function to ensure that the money circulates as it comes through us, and it's circulated back through the community. So that's our role, and so that's what we do economically. So yes, we have a lot of money, but yes, we're very careful how we spend that money, because the primary beneficiaries of that money are the shareholders, which are you, all the members.
Yeah, but it also seems to me that there may be a lot of churches out there who, for whatever reason, have decided to bank elsewhere. And I know it's a free country, But I mean, there's one branch in particular, one denomination of churches that I know has about 4,000 branches. So it seems to me that there needs to be a groundswell of support
Yes.
among people to actually help grow the
Yes.
PCU. It's
Absolutely.
doing well as it is, but it could do even better.
Of course it could.
Twice as better, 10 times as better.
Yes.
And that's something that yourself, the board, Shane, need to look at in terms of growth and where you can go to in the future.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we're very much behind you. As you know, we have an account with you. So
Yes.
So thank you for what you do. And we certainly want to continue to encourage you. I was at your father's funeral. I did attend along with, thousands of others. And the recording is on
it's
YouTube as
on
well.
YouTube.
So we'll put a link to that
YouTube.
because there were many ministers who went up and spoke about how the PCU has helped them over the years. So that in itself is a testimony to your father and to your family who've kept this thing alive.
Yeah.
So well done.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very special. It's very, very special. It's very special to us. I mean, it's we've grown up with it, and we've seen how it was so important to my dad. Oh my goodness. As you would imagine, definitely was his life's work. I mean, he did many things in his life, my father, but the Pentecostal Credit Union was definitely key and central to him.
Yeah. So at the moment you have loans outstanding of about 8.6 million, yeah?
Yeah, that's from the loan book, yeah.
Yes, and those continue to be paid off. So that's good.
Yes.
All right.
And around 10 million in savings in investments. We've got 10 million. It's not a bad business, as you can see the accounts that we produce every year in the annual report. I mean, the best thing to do is come to the website and everything's there, and also our YouTube channel.
Yes.
You go to the YouTube channel and you'll see all the videos that are on there, including if you put my father's funeral is also on our YouTube channel, but of course if you put in Rev Carmel Jones, it'll come up,
Yes, yeah.
because it was at Ruach, the services at Ruach City Church.
And we must be transparent in that sometimes there may have been issues where you knocked heads with the Financial Services Authority. But your dad always seemed to come up trump somehow. He knew his way around the system.
Oh my!
He knew how to fight for his people.
Yeah, we're going to tell this story, as I said. We are going to tell this story. But my father was official. He really, really, really was. Now you're looking back on it, what he did in the 1980s and 1990s. So credit unions were never allowed to lend money to what they call corporates, businesses. There was a time when credit unions, corporate accounts were not allowed, business accounts were not allowed, and you could only lend money to individuals. Well, my father devised a scheme that worked really very well for many years, where PCU was able to lend, or did lend, to churches. And so this lending was perfectly legal because they were loans and we were allowed to do them, but irregular in that the FSA, at the time it was the FSA, it's now the FCA, but back in the day it was the FSA, did not allow corporate lending. But years later they now do allow corporate lending. So if he did it now, it wouldn't be an issue. But he was doing
your father was ahead of his time.
He was ahead of his time, and because of that corporate lending,
he probably caused a change in the law.
He did. Because he'd give the churches. There was this church that got £1 million. He'd lend £1 million to a church, and he did. There was a church body that got £1 million, and that church grew exponentially. A loan of £1 million from us, at the time to do it, which was unheard of, unprecedented, but he was able to do it, and he did it. And the church repaid, and actually that loan is still being repaid. But you know, you know, these churches, these bodies are not only churches in the community, but they provide, you know, a lot of the strength of a church is the service it gives to the community. It's not just there to be a building for people to come to on a Sunday and to worship, but it's there to be a help and solace to people in the community in relation to its buildings. There's lots of churches that in the week time they have nurseries in. It's a nursery, it's a luncheon club, it's all of those things, plus the work that they do to support people in the community. So, you know, it's a real, and that particular church is a massive community resource. So these are things we're actually very proud of.
Yeah.
But yeah, he knocked heads with the regulator over that business. And you heard me say at his funeral, you know, when he got into trouble for doing it, and who heard me say at his funeral, I asked him when it was all over. This is years ago now. This happened about 14 years ago. And I asked him when it was over, would you do it again? And he said, yes. Yes. He would do it again. And the regulators knew he would do it again. That he was a total maverick. They could not control him. You know, they would tell him not to do it and he'd find another way and go and do it.
It just goes to show you need a particular type of strength if you're gonna grow a business out of the ordinary.
Yes.
You know, you almost need to be a superhero. You got to be the kind of person that doesn't care what people think. You see the end goal, and you know you're reaping the end goal now.
Yes, we are.
And this is this is a great example for business people. And it's interesting. Okay, you were lending loans for buying buildings, but you also giving business loans as well.
Yes, we are, because we can. We're allowed to now.
Yeah. So that's really interesting, the way things have turned around and how your business has developed. So we will keep in touch. We will try and spread the word about what you're doing. And hopefully we'll help a few more people come and open accounts with you.
Yes, they won't regret it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They won't. We've got some great things coming up, offerings for our members on the horizon. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think also it might be good if at some point later on you start to talk about some of the businesses that you've helped to grow.
Yes.
Because I'm sure you've got some amazing stories there.
You've got some great stories, yeah.
Yeah, so I look forward to hearing more of that. And at some point in the future, we'll also talk to Shane.
You will, yes.
All right, fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you for your time. And
thank you for the opportunity, Tom.
You're welcome. I mean, we should have done this a long time ago, really, but here we are. Thank you so much. And let's keep in touch.
Yep.
And all the best for the big development later in the year.
Yeah. Okay, Dawn. Thank you.